Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. We were at a friend's rooftop party in downtown LA. Late summer heat, string lights overhead, glasses clinking. I was standing maybe 5 feet away from her, close enough to hear, but far enough to be invisible. She was laughing with 2 of her friends, girls she used to say drained her energy. Now, apparently, they were her inner circle. Then one of them asked, jokingly, "So, what's it like being married to your comfort husband?" She rolled her eyes, took a sip of wine, and said it. Loud enough. Clear enough. Too clear. Honestly, he makes my skin crawl. I hate being near him. It's like being around a pet that doesn't know it's been replaced. They laughed, and she didn't even flinch. Her voice wasn't angry. It was bored. Like this was old news. Like she had said it before, just never in front of me. I didn't move. Didn't step forward. Didn't ask who she was talking about, because I already knew. She turned slightly and saw me. Our eyes met, and in that fraction of a second, I saw it. Not guilt, not fear, just annoyance, like I was interrupting her show. I didn't respond, didn't cause a scene, didn't ask, what the hell was that? Instead, I walked to the edge of the rooftop, looked out over the city, and smiled. Not a sarcastic smile, not a bitter one, a silent one. Because I had finally heard what my gut had been screaming for months, and I was done pretending it was anything else. I stayed exactly 10 minutes longer, enough to finish the drink in my hand, shake a few hands, give a casual wave. Then I left. No confrontation, no dramatic exit. That night, in our apartment, she came home 2 hours later. Didn't mention what happened. Didn't ask why I left. She walked in like nothing had happened, tossed her shoes off, and said, "Did you feed the cat?" I nodded. Didn't look at her. Didn't speak. She muttered something under her breath and walked to the bedroom. I sat in the living room, lights off, city glow bleeding in through the windows. And that was the night I started planning my exit. Not the loud kind. Not the kind she could see coming. The cold kind. The silent kind. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but rewrites everything. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about her. It was about clarity. She thought I was harmless. Safe. Stuck. She was about to find out how wrong she was. She didn't notice the shift at first. Of course not. People like her never do. They only notice when the center stops orbiting around them. The next morning, I made no sound. I got up early, dressed in silence, didn't touch the coffee machine we both used. No goodbye. No routine kiss on the cheek. Just the quiet thud of the door closing behind me. She texted a few hours later. "Everything okay?" I read it. Didn't respond. Not yet. That day at work, I set things in motion. Small things. I logged into our shared streaming services and changed the passwords. Started routing a portion of my direct deposit into a new private account. Signed up for a gym again, one near the office, open late. I wasn't building an escape. I was building a version of me that didn't include her. That night, she was home before me. Dinner was takeout again. The table was set, sort of, with paper bags and 2 forks. When I walked in, she glanced up from her phone and said, "You're late." I said nothing. Just walked past her, to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, then sat on the far end of the couch. She turned the volume up on the TV like nothing was wrong. I sat there, watching her reflection in the black screen. She didn't even glance at me. She had no idea I was already gone. In the days that followed, I perfected the art of polite detachment. I answered her with nods, not words. When she complained about her day, I let the silence answer for me. When she tried to touch my arm in bed, I shifted slowly, not harshly. Just enough. And still, she didn't ask. She thought it was a mood. A funk. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe I'd bounce back. But this wasn't emotional. This was operational. I canceled the cleaning service. Started doing my laundry separately. Set new boundaries, quietly, like removing a chair from a dinner table no one was going to sit in again. She still didn't notice. Then came the second weekend. She walked into the room in a silk robe I hadn't seen in a year. Hairstyled. Perfume. She sat on the armrest next to me, legs crossed, wine in hand. "You've been quiet lately," she said, searching my face. I looked at her for a moment, not through her, at her, and said, "I've been listening." She tilted her head, curious. "To what?" I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and rinsed out my cup. She didn't follow. That was the first crack. She thought this was a cold front, a temporary chill in the marriage. But what she didn't realize was that winter had already begun. And I wasn't looking for warmth anymore. I was preparing for the freeze. By week 3, her concern turned into tension. She started asking questions she never used to ask. Where was I going after work? Why didn't I eat dinner with her anymore? Why was I suddenly paying attention to the gym, to my appearance? I never lied. I just didn't answer in ways she could use. I've been busy. Needed some space. Just clearing my head. I gave her exactly what she once demanded: distance. Only now, it wasn't on her terms. One night, I came home later than usual. She was dressed up, hair curled, candles lit. The table was set for 2. Something Italian. Something she knew I used to love. I walked in, hung up my jacket, and asked if the takeout was for a guest. She froze. Said it was for us. She thought we could reconnect. I nodded, took a seat, ate in silence. Didn't compliment the effort. Didn't ask why. When she reached across the table and let her fingers graze mine, I moved them. Not abruptly. Not in anger. Just moved them like it wasn't even worth addressing. She watched me like she didn't recognize the man across from her. And in a way, she didn't. Because the man she once dismissed, the predictable, accommodating version, was gone. I started waking up before sunrise. No alarm. Just instinct. Left the apartment early, came home late. I no longer moved around her. I moved past her. And she felt it. In the way I no longer asked about her day. In the way I no longer checked the gas in her car or reminded her to pay the water bill. And for the first time, she started to notice the weight I used to carry in silence. That Friday, she asked if I wanted to go out, grab dinner, see a movie. I told her I had plans. Didn't specify. Didn't lie. She watched me get dressed. New clothes. Better fit. The kind of look I used to save for our early dates. Who are you seeing? She asked, trying to sound casual. I tied my shoes slowly and looked at her like I didn't understand the question. Then I left. The truth? There was no one. Not yet. This wasn't about someone new. This was about the man I had lost in the mirror over the past few years. I had become invisible in my own life until she taught me how loud silence can be. And now, that silence was echoing back at her. She had built her sense of control on one assumption. That I would never leave. That no matter how cold she became, I would keep reaching. But I had stopped reaching. I wasn't pulling away. I was letting go. And when a man lets go without warning, he doesn't fall. He disappears. Quietly. Permanently. She always thought I needed her more than she needed me. That was her first mistake. The second was assuming silence meant weakness. After that night, after she dressed up and tried to pretend everything was fine, I started the quiet dismantling. I didn't explain. I didn't warn. I just moved. First, I disappeared from our shared accounts. Streaming, subscriptions, calendar events vanished. Her weekly yoga reminders, tied to my email? Gone. The couple's Spotify playlist we hadn't touched in months? Deleted. Then I moved to finances. Rerouted my salary. Opened a separate bank account under my name only. The password was a phrase she used to say when she still respected me. She didn't notice. Of course not. She had long since stopped asking about bills, budgets, or where the money came from. Next was space. I moved half my wardrobe into the guest room. No announcement. No conflict. Just a slow migration: shirts, suits, gym clothes. I slept in there 3 nights in a row before she finally asked. I told her I had trouble sleeping. That was it. She accepted the lie because it was easier than facing the truth. That she was no longer someone I wanted to share air with. She started probing. Asking where I'd been. Who I was texting. Why I seemed distant. I gave her nothing. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in precision. Every interaction became strategic. Neutral. Controlled. Measured. Like dealing with a colleague you once trusted, but now keep at arm's length. She began to panic in subtle ways. Wearing makeup on random evenings. Asking if I wanted to do something fun this weekend. Trying to initiate touch after weeks of none. I didn't reject her directly. That would give her power. Instead, I treated her like background noise. Like a radio playing in another room. The more indifferent I became, the more desperate she got. She started cooking again. Little meals with ingredients she knew I liked. But the taste of effort, when it comes from fear, is always bitter. I ate quietly. Didn't say thank you. Didn't criticize either. Just cleaned my plate and left the table. She stood in the kitchen longer each night after that. Not doing anything. Just standing. Waiting for a reaction that would never come. What she didn't understand. What most people never understand. Is that real endings don't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes, they come with unlocked ones. with routines that no longer intersect, with coffee made for one. And that's what I was giving her. Not revenge, not cruelty, just absence. Slow, quiet, surgical. She used to be my world. Now she was just a sound fading into the background. And I was already learning how to live without the noise. I had no interest in confrontation. I wasn't going to yell or demand apologies. People like her don't apologize. Not really. They reframe, they shift blame, they spin silence into victimhood. So I gave her nothing to spin. By the end of the 4th week, the imbalance was visible. Not just to us, but to anyone paying attention. Friends, neighbors, even her sister, who had once called me the stable one. It started with a small thing, our anniversary. I didn't forget it. I just didn't mention it. She came home that evening dressed like she was expecting dinner plans. Heels, new dress, light perfume. I was already on the couch, gym bag at my feet, laptop open. No flowers, no reservation, no acknowledgement. She asked if I had remembered. I looked up, held her gaze for just a second, and went back to typing. That was my answer. Later that night, I saw her staring at her phone in bed. Not scrolling, not texting, just staring, waiting for something that never came. The next morning, I met with a lawyer. Not to file anything yet, just to understand what I was entitled to. What moves I could make without making noise. He explained everything. Joint assets, shared debts, leverage points. I took notes like I was preparing for a quiet war. Then I did something deliberate. I contacted our financial advisor and asked for statements to be sent only to my email. She would notice eventually. That was the point. I wasn't going to blow up her world. I was going to let her watch it slowly dim. The following weekend, I booked a 3-day trip out of town. Told her the day I left. No details, no location, just a text. I'll be gone for a few days. She didn't respond. I didn't post about it. Didn't broadcast anything. But I made sure the silence stretched long enough for questions to form. When I came back, she was waiting in the kitchen. Eyes tired. Posture tense. She asked if I had fun. I said, it was peaceful. She didn't reply. Her panic was now fully operational. But she was too proud to name it. So instead, she tried harder. Home-cooked meals every night. Questions about my day. Soft touches on my back when I passed. I didn't reject any of it. But I didn't return it either. Because none of it was real. It was performance. A desperate grab at a man who no longer stood still. The more she tried, the more she exposed herself. She wanted control. But now she was reacting. And I was just watching. Not with anger. Not with hope. With distance. Because when a man stops chasing clarity from someone who thrives on confusion, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictable men are dangerous in silence. The 6th week was when the cracks went public. Not from me. I didn't speak a word. But her image, flawless, composed, untouchable, began to collapse under the weight of my absence. It started at a family dinner. Her parents invited us, like they always did once a month. She reminded me with a text, dinner at 6. Don't be late. I showed up on time. Suit. Watch. Calm. She was already there, smiling for her mother's phone. As I walked in, the room shifted. Not because I said anything, but because I didn't. I greeted everyone but her. Held the door for her mother. Complimented the food. Answered questions with ease. But when her hand grazed mine under the table, I moved it. Subtly. Cleanly. And her sister noticed. Later that night, her sister texted me. Everything okay between you two? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The silence was doing the work for me. 2 days later, her best friend messaged me on Instagram. Friendly. Casual. Curious. She had posted a story of her cocktail glass at a rooftop bar. I was tagged. I hadn't even been there. A trap. A test. I removed the tag. Didn't respond. Then I changed all my privacy settings. Her circle was circling. Not because I said anything, but because the version of me she used to control had gone quiet. And in silence, people start asking questions. She tried to regain ground the only way she knew how, through appearance. Suddenly, she was posting again. Smiling selfies. Date night, captions with no one else in the frame. Hashtags like hashtag healing, hashtag growth, hashtag new chapter. The irony was loud. She was branding her decline as evolution. But the only transformation happening was mine. That weekend, I ran into a mutual friend of ours at the gym. He asked how we were doing. I said, she's learning what it feels like when support leaves quietly. He nodded slowly. Didn't press. A few days later, That same friend liked one of her selfies and unfollowed her a day after. Small things. But small things unravel narratives. Back home, she was spiraling in controlled chaos. Cooking every night. Asking to watch movies. Sitting closer on the couch. I didn't push her away. But I never moved toward her. She started drinking wine earlier. Scrolling more. Pacing rooms like something was out of place, but couldn't name what. And I let her wonder. Because she had spent years building an image of control. She wore it like armor. Now, she was naked in the silence. And everyone was starting to see the fracture. Her charm wasn't landing. Her stories weren't sinking. And I was no longer part of her act. I was the gap in the script. The part of the scene that refused to show up on cue. And in that void, her truth began to leak. By the 7th week, she had stopped pretending. The performances were gone. The smiles disappeared. All that was left was silence and the weight of her own reflection. She had tested every angle, seduction, nostalgia, guilt. None of it worked. Because I wasn't playing defense. I wasn't even on the field anymore. I moved through the house like a guest. Quiet, composed, detached. Not cruel. Not distant in a loud way. Just no longer present in the places she used to expect me. She started texting during the day. Pointless messages. Photos of the cat. Screenshots of memes. Each one a soft probe, asking, "Are you still reachable?" I replied, when necessary. Not cold, clinical. Answers like, "Sure, okay, noted." She was trying to spark something. But I was now fireproof. Then came the first break in her voice. A Sunday morning. I was making coffee. She hovered in the doorway, arms crossed. She asked if I wanted to go for a walk. Said we used to do that. Said it felt like maybe we should start again. I looked at her. Not past her, through her. "I'm busy," I said. And that was it. She didn't try again that day. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Left a note on the counter. Didn't sleep. Went to clear my head. I didn't text her. Didn't ask where. Didn't check her location. By evening, she was back. Quiet. Worn. A little slower in how she moved. She asked if I was mad at her. That was the moment I knew she still didn't understand. I wasn't angry. I was done. She stood in the hallway like a child trying to apologize for a broken glass, not realizing the house had already burned down. And for the first time, she looked small. That night, I heard her cry in the bathroom. Soft, measured, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping house. But I didn't move. The man I used to be would have knocked. Asked. Reached. Held her. But that man had disappeared 7 weeks ago. And all that was left was someone who had nothing left to explain. I lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Not thinking of her. Thinking of peace. Because the silence she used to weaponize was now surrounding her from all sides. And this time, it wasn't mine. It was hers. She tried one last move. A confrontation, quiet, but planned. She waited until I got home from work. No makeup, no pretense. Just rawness she hoped would look like vulnerability. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, eyes fixed on mine. She said she didn't know what was happening. That she felt something slipping. That maybe we needed to talk before it was too late. But that was the problem. It was already too late. She wanted answers, but not the truth. She wanted reassurance, not reflection. She wasn't trying to save us. She was trying to stop the fall, hers, not mine. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't list her mistakes. Didn't remind her of rooftop parties or silences that used to hum with arrogance. I said 4 words, "There's nothing to fix." She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stared like the floor had dropped under her. Then came the questions, quiet, rapid, unstable. Did I want someone else? Was I leaving? Was I punishing her? No. No. And no. I wasn't leaving to chase another. I was leaving because she taught me how to disappear, and now I had learned. She whispered something about missing what we had. I didn't respond. What we had was gone. What she remembered was a man she mistook for a guarantee. Now, that man was gone, and what stood in his place didn't need to explain absence. I walked past her, grabbed a water from the fridge, sat down at the table and opened my laptop. She didn't follow, didn't try to touch me, didn't speak again. Later that night, I heard her on the phone, voice low, fractured, saying things like, "I think I pushed too far," and "He's not even angry. He's just gone." The words didn't hurt. They didn't matter. Because the power had shifted. And the silence she once used as leverage was now surrounding her, room by room. She asked for space. I gave it to her. But she never expected I'd build a life in that space where she no longer fit. By the 9th week, I barely recognized her. Not because she looked different, she didn't, but because her entire posture had changed. Gone was the detached woman who once rolled her eyes at affection. Now, she moved like someone walking through fog, reaching for walls that weren't there. She had become quiet. Not the weaponized silence she used to wield. This was different. This was confusion. She couldn't understand how the man she once controlled no longer responded to the usual triggers. How indifference became my armor. How peace had replaced obsession. I watched her pace the kitchen one morning, staring at her phone. She had no idea I had seen the notification light up the screen, a message from someone saved under a name I didn't recognize. I didn't ask, didn't confront. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever attention she had once craved elsewhere, it was now meaningless. Because the currency she had used to buy time with me had run out. That weekend, I didn't come home until after midnight. No explanation. No text. No guilt. She was sitting on the couch, knees tucked to her chest. I walked in, dropped my keys, poured a glass of water, and headed to the bedroom. She didn't speak. She didn't even try. That was the moment I knew. She had finally understood. Not just that I was leaving, but that I had already left. The next morning, she cleaned the apartment. Organized drawers. Washed sheets. Rearranged books. A panic ritual. Trying to restore what was never physical in the first place. She asked if I wanted to sit down and talk. Said she knew she'd been distant. Said she realized things had gone too far. I nodded once. Told her I had heard everything I needed to, a long time ago. She blinked. Waited. But there was nothing more to say. When a man truly detaches, there's no exit speech. Just motion. Just the sound of doors unlocking from the inside. That night, I booked a week-long trip. One bag. No return date. I didn't ask if she needed anything. Didn't leave a note. She watched me pack. Didn't ask where I was going. Because some part of her already knew this wasn't a vacation. It was closure, without conversation. I left on a Tuesday. No goodbye. No message. No need. She stood in the hallway as I zipped the last bag. Not crying. Not begging. Just watching, like she still thought I might stop and turn around. I didn't. I walked out the door, past the elevator, down the stairs. Every step felt weightless. Not because I was escaping something, but because I had already shed it, long before I moved my body. That first night away, I stayed in a small cabin 2 hours from the city. No phone service. No Wi-Fi. Just me, silence, and air that didn't reek of tension. I sat on the porch and listened. Not to her voice. Not to old memories. But to my own. The man I used to be was still there, beneath the version she tried to silence. And now, he was standing again. She texted on the second day. Are you okay? I didn't answer. 3 hours later. Can we talk when you get back? No reply. By the end of the week, the messages had shifted. From soft check-ins to raw confusion. Then came the silence. Perfect. When I returned, the apartment was still. Her things were untouched. The bed was made. The air was thin, as if waiting for a scene that would never come. She asked if I wanted to talk. Said she had been thinking a lot. Said she understood now. But understanding doesn't erase damage. It doesn't rebuild trust quietly destroyed over years. I handed her an envelope. Inside, a printed list of everything she had full ownership of. Bank accounts, furniture, whatever she wanted to take with her. She read it. Eyes scanning, breath catching. Then came the final sentence at the bottom. I'm not disappearing. I'm just done showing up where I'm not respected. She looked up, and for the first time in months, said nothing. No defense. No story. Just stillness. I picked up my bag and walked past her, not fast, not theatrical. Just done. The door closed behind me. No slam. Just the click of an ending that had been writing itself since the night she said I disgusted her. And on the other side of that door, she stood alone. With her silence, her control, her power. None of which could bring me back. Because I didn't leave to be chased. I left because I finally remembered who I was before she made me forget. And I wasn't coming back. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.